Brother Paul. So I'm going to open first of all. Pardon?
Can you tilt the mic down slightly?
Slightly. Okay. Tomorrow is National Day of Truth and Reconciliation here in Canada. So I think it's particularly appropriate to commence with a land title acknowledgement. And we would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe people. These words are offered in humility and respect for the privilege of sharing this land. So, hello, my name is Maura, and some of you might know me by my maiden name, McKay. My last name now is De Freitas. And I'd like to say, first of all, welcome, dear friends, particularly those of you who are here to honor your ancestors who lie beneath this soil. It's been a long journey to get here, and I'm not talking about the distance we traveled from Vancouver to be with you here today. I've heard my mother talking about Martindale Pioneer Cemetery since I was a small child. In those early days, we just called it the old graveyard. It began back in the early 1960s when she was pregnant with her fourth child. I was very young then and unaware of any difficulties or drama in the background. I just recall being in the old graveyard with her as she was off making notes and muttering quietly to herself. The site had been forgotten then, and it was covered in bramble. Some of the old headstones had tumbled over and the names had faded in the mists of time. Many were engraved with shamrocks and images of Ireland, the homeland they left behind, and I was intrigued by the story they told. As children, we often heard about the great famine that brought our ancestors here and their perilous voyages across the sea to find a new home here in Canada. At the time we visited the old graveyard, my mother knew she was in trouble. Her pregnancy and her own life, sorry, I'm not going to cry, okay? We're in the balance. The child she was carrying was unviable and she had no medical options available. As a last resort, she was here talking to her ancestors and making a pledge. Her three small children needed their mother, so she was asking for their help. She promised that if she could survive this pregnancy, she would dedicate herself to restoring their final resting place and preserving their memory. In the end, my mother survived her pregnancy, but her child did not. His name was Con Stephen, and he lies buried up the hill here in the new cemetery among his people. And his brother Liam also rests beside him. What followed is a matter of record on our website, Martindale Pioneer Cemetery, but I was here to witness the destruction of this cemetery. I stood beside my mother as she cried helplessly, watching the headstones being pushed into a large pit and covered over. She was silenced about those events for many years afterwards, but in our family it was never forgotten. My mother held the names of those who were buried in this soil in a closely guarded purse. Those names were written out in longhand under duress, and it was her record of their existence. It wasn't until she met an old farmer by the name of Martin Brown that there was any hope of putting things right. This field had become a cow pasture, and the history was becoming lost, but Martin hadn't forgotten either. They began working together to finally restore the dignity of their ancestors. It was because of the work of a small group of people, including Eddie McLaughlin and Bernice McSheffrey, that this remarkable triple cenotaph stands here today, engraved with the names of those who settled here. The history of their voyage is depicted on the Celtic cross standing guard beside it. Designed by Belfast artist Ethno O'Kane, it tells the story of crossing the ocean on coffin ships, where many perished, and the mothers and fathers who struggled to protect their children. You'll see them at the bottom. I think the words written by my mother's friend, Robert McClellan, who was the visiting professor of Celtic Studies at the University of Ottawa, appropriately honors their memory. May the light of heaven shine on the souls of the Gaels who left Ireland in the years of the Great Famine. They will be remembered as long as love and music last. For my mother to finally see this project to completion with the assistance of the Government of Ireland is the culmination of a lifelong journey. Her friend Martin Brown and Eddie McLaughlin and Bernice McSheffrey are no longer among us, but surely they must be smiling down from heaven above to see the work they accomplished together. In closing, I would like to thank Liette Hickey for her resolute help and support over the years, to Michelle Logue-Wakeling for her assistance in finalizing our grant application with the Irish Immigrant Support Program, and to Les Jardins du Souvenir for their excellent workmanship in completing this magnificent walkway. Visitors from far and wide now come to visit this site in search of their own personal history, and this pathway will give access to everybody, particularly those with mobility issues. I also want to thank Martin Lamotang, who is a very special person to our family. He so generously donated the bench which sits behind the monument and provides a place to sit and reflect on those who have come before us. And a special mention goes out to my childhood friend Eleanor Brennan and her husband Roger Simard, who so kindly offered to assist with our sound system today. I would also like to acknowledge my cherished stepson Miguel De Freitas, who accompanied my mother and myself as we traveled here from our new home on the west coast of Canada. And it's a great honor to also have Elisabeth O'Higgins here with us today, who is the Chargé d'Affaires with the Embassy of Ireland. And she is representing the Government of Ireland as the new Ambassador of Ireland is coming into his new position. And before I invite Elisabeth up to come and say a few words, I'm going to take the microphone over because my mom has some mobility issues, as you probably are aware, and I'm going to let her say a few words, and then we'll hear from Elisabeth. Thank you.
I would like to first of all welcome all of you for being here today. Special thanks to Father Paul Mabou and Deacon Ed Etier for their presence. Father Paul kindly changed the Mass time today to accommodate this celebration. Thank you. Thank you very much. We are also honored to have Chargé d'Affaires with the Embassy of Ireland to Canada, Elisabeth O'Higgins. As many of you may know, the Government of Ireland sponsored this beautiful walkway through grant funding with the Irish Government Immigrant Support Program. I am very impressed with the work of Les Jardins du Souvenir, who installed this walkway, which will enable visitors to visit this quiet and peaceful place. The Director General, Daniel Desande, and some of his workers are here today. I would also like to thank Martin Lamotang, who donated the bench behind the monument, which will allow people to come and sit and also commune with their ancestors. There are 3 people who are not with us anymore, but I'm sure they're with us in spirit, and that is Martin Brown, Eddie McLaughlin, and Bernice McSheffrey, who are all from Banosta. They stood with me at a time when they really needed and valued their support. Martin Brown in particular was a very far-seeing man. He told me that in years to come, the boys and girls who had to leave their farms to find work and may have married and moved away, their children would come back to Martindale to search for more information about their ancestors, and now the history is all here for them. The souls buried here may have thought they came to this country with very little in way of worldly possessions, but some of the greatest gifts they carried with them included their faith, their culture, their music, their song, and their dance. I cannot imagine what it must have been like for our ancestors arriving in Quebec to experience their first harsh winter here. I'm sorry. With 30 below zero weather and blowing wind and snow, they surely could never have imagined, let alone be prepared for that. Before this cemetery was desecrated, there were little white crosses just over there with shamrocks and Celtic designs where the babies were buried, some at birth, others just a few days or weeks old. Many women also died in childbirth and are also buried here. There were no doctors, no priests, no church, no schools. These people knew they'd never return in their lifetime to Ireland. I can't imagine their heartbreak. It was a make or break situation here, and their faith sustained them. We are here today because of their sacrifices. There are a few people that I would like to thank. My daughter Maura has done an incredible job in designing and establishing the Martindale Pioneer Cemetery website. She's also helped in so many other ways. Her husband, Marura De Freitas, presented me with a beautiful painting of Martindale Pioneer Cemetery and St. Martin's Church. And this now hangs on my wall, and I look at it every day. I'm so pleased to have her stepson Miguel here with us today. Also, I'd like to mention my family who have supported me and sustained me through all these years. At my age, it's always a bonus to come home to Martindale. Finally, thank you to Liette Hickey, our liaison here at Martindale throughout these past few years. Her support has been outstanding. In closing, I would like to remind you that our answers came from County Mayo. And if you have an opportunity to take a moment to listen to the tune, The Boys from the County Mayo, this song means a lot to me. U.S. President Joe Biden, who is also a proud Mayo man, says, speaking about democracy, it's ours if we can keep it. It's the same with our faith. Up Mayo and up the Gatineau.
I'll introduce
So now I'd like to welcome Elisabeth to come over and to say a few words before we unveil this plaque that we have here commemorating the Irish government for their kindness. Thank you.
Thanks, Moira. I don't know how I follow Moira and Elaine, but yeah, I mean, I can't say much more than strong Irish women and what they can achieve. Yeah, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Elisabeth O'Higgins. I am the current Chargé d'Affaires at the Embassy of Ireland, and it's a real privilege to be here today. This is a really poignant and an emotional moment, I think, and a culmination, as Moira mentioned, of years and years of work. It's really an honour to be here on behalf of the Government of Ireland, who through the Immigrant Support Programme supported this project. Projects like this take a huge amount of work, a huge amount of energy, a huge amount of commitment and passion as well. And I know that that's something that Elaine has in spades, and to have Elaine here today all the way from BC is really, really important. And I think the support of the Immigrant Support Programme really recognises how important the Irish government feels in supporting work like this and keeping the memory of the Irish alive in Canada. We all know how important that is. It's so important, and the stories that we've heard today of people who arrived all those years ago and really the struggles that they had to go through, it's so important that we remember them, and also important that we remember them in the context of the world that we live today as well. So thank you so much for having me here. A big congratulations, I think, is also in order to Elaine and to Moira for all your hard work. And it also takes a village for these kinds of projects to come together. So for everybody who helped along the way, it's really important. So I hope you all make use of this space, and it's a really peaceful place actually that you can come and make use of it. It's a beautiful place to have in your community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.